Thank you for joining this presentation on novel science. The presentation will focus on Colibri, which are sample collection devices for volumetric collection of first void or first catch urine, improving diagnostic accuracy and patient comfort. The device is really easy to use. So you start to unscrew the cap. Next, you screw on the collector tube to the housing of the device, and next you start urinating. You can do that either in a standing or sitting position. After urinating, the collector tube is filled, and you unscrew the collector tube from the housing. There's no need to interrupt the urine flow, as upon collection there's a floater system in place, and that allows you to collect only in the tube, and the remainder of the urine, once the tube is filled, will go through the outlet into the toilet. So once you're done, you will screw on the cap again, and you will hear and feel a click to ensure that the tube has been properly closed. So why use urine as a sample type? This is important to increase participation in screening programs, like for instance for the human papillomavirus, a virus able to cause cervical cancer. It's considered to be a promising liquid biopsy for oncology purposes. In urine, you can identify new biomarkers, and it is a sample that is really suited for home-based collection. So why use specifically first void or first catch urine? Not all urine fractions are actually the same. So the first 5 to 50 milliliters of the urine flow contains a higher concentration of STI and HPV related DNA compared to other fractions. And it also allows for detection of oncology related biomarkers to, for instance, identify patients with prostate cancer. Why is it important to stabilize urine? It's important to protect the sample from degradation, and that can be done either immediately by freezing the sample or by mixing with a preservative. So there's a longer stability of the urinary analytes, and that's done through the immediate mixing with a preservative, so the tubes come pre-filled, and this has several advantages. So it has advantages in clinical practice because you can transport the samples at room temperature, but also in research studies. Urine can be considered an emergent liquid biopsy. The golden standard is still a tissue sample, but quite often when tissue is an issue, people will revert to liquid biopsies. Liquid biopsies are considered to be non-invasive. They address tumor heterogeneity. They allow for serial sampling. They also allow for real-time monitoring, and they're considered to be cost efficient. Now, quite often when people think about a liquid biopsy, they immediately think about a blood sample. However, yellow is the new red, and urine can also be considered as an emergent liquid biopsy. It's absolutely non-invasive. It's not limited by the health status of the patient. There's also no risk for bloodborne pathogen transmission, and higher volumes also allow for multi-omic testing, including DNA, RNA, proteins, EVs, and exosomes. Colibri can be considered a unique device. It's user-friendly for all genders. It allows for standardized volumetric self-sampling without interrupting the urine flow. It's considered to be compatible with the high-throughput instruments, and it allows capturing a range of urine volumes from 4 ml up to 45 ml for different application purposes. The collection tubes can be pre-filled with a preservative, and this allows for stabilization of the urinary content and also shipment at ambient temperatures. Urine is also a non-invasive and a hygienic self-sample. Colibri, there's a different range of volumes for the different applications. The smaller volumes here can collect 4 to 10 ml. The intermediate version will allow collection of 20 milliliters, and the larger volumes allow collection up to 45 milliliters. Each of these can be pre-filled using a preservative. Taking a bit deeper dive into those small volumes. So by using standard tubes, Novozymes' Colli-Pee, the small volume variant allows for high throughput processing by automated systems, as these tubes fit the carriers of the high throughput machines. This avoids pre-analytical errors, it reduces the manual processing time, and it definitely shortens the turnaround time. When we look at the workflow, current workflow, when you urinate into a larger cup, this will need to be transferred using a pipette into the smaller tubes, and those smaller tubes are then put onto the machines, the carriers of the high throughput machines. When we then look at a workflow when we would be using the Colli-Pee device with the smaller volume tubes, you would urinate immediately into the small volume tube, and that tube can be processed directly onto the machine. So they're compatible with existing racks, and as indicated, there's a large variety of different carriers available, but our small volume tubes fit each of these carriers. We have evaluated Colli-Pee on a variety of these commercial systems. So on the one hand, in green, you see the different high throughput screening assays that we have evaluated, and we've done that specifically on the human papillomavirus DNA, which we know that is feasible to detect in first void urine. And we've also evaluated each of these systems for their compatibility with the assay chemistry. So as mentioned on the left-hand side, you see the high throughput screening assays that we have evaluated, including Becton Dickinson, Roche, Hologic. We've also evaluated the Cepheid machine, which is considered to be a point-of-care machine, and we've evaluated several genotyping assays, including the Inolipa, the Papilloplex, the Aniplex, and the Operon strip. This small volume Colli-Pee also allows for home-based collection, as this device nicely fits a box and can contain all the return packaging, not only the sampling device, but also, for instance, a safety bag to return the sample to the lab after collection. And these can be customized using sleeves that can be specifically designed depending on the need and the application. Looking at the larger volume Colli-Pee, that's the 45 milliliter. Also, these tubes allow for high throughput processing, but these will specifically address low biomarker concentration, and these will also allow for multi-omic testing because of the larger volumes that are being captured. Looking at some data with regard to volumetric and standardized first void urine collection, we have looked at the collected volumes for the Colli-Pee 10 milliliter, Colli-Pee 20 milliliter, and we've compared those to the collection using a regular urine cup. And what is nicely shown in this graph is that the range in the collected volume is significantly lower in those collected using Colli-Pee compared to the urine cup, where there's a far larger variety of what is called first void urine that is collected by the patient, as it's of course a little bit unclear to the patient what amount of volume they need to collect in this cup. Looking at the usability of Colli-Pee, we have conducted several studies, Belgium, the Netherlands, Canada, and Spain, looking at the compiled data. We see that 90.1% of the participants rated Colli-Pee as very easy to use. And they also considered Colli-Pee to be more convenient for home-based sampling. When we then compare first void urine using the Colli-Pee device to a regular urine cup, and then specifically for STI testing, we have conducted a study in 213 MSM, and they performed repeated sampling, and we specifically looked at chlamydia trachomatis, gonorrhea, and mycoplasma genitalium. And we noticed that these three pathogens are more detected in a Colli-Pee collected sample compared to the urine cup samples. And looking at these data, we see that we capture 41 of those pathogens in the urine cup, but we actually miss 11 versus the Colli-Pee collected samples, where we have captured 49 of those pathogens in the study population and missed only 3. When we then compare first void urine using the Colibri device and a regular urine cup for HPV, so human papillomavirus testing, we see that the samples collected with Colibri yielded a significantly higher number of copies of the human DNA and also the HPV DNA. So the box plot shows the data for the HPV 16 DNA, where you can see that the green box plots represent Colibri versus the blue box plots that represent the urine cup. So you do see that there's a significantly higher yield using the Colibri device. And these results are interestingly also independent of whether the first void is taken from the first urine of the day or urine provided later during the day. When we then look at first void urine as an alternative to pap smears for HPV testing, we see that there's a similar performance to a pap smear and a vaginal self-sample with almost a perfect detection of HPV infections in women with thin 2+ lesions. We also see that there is a high overall HPV positivity with Colibri collected first void urine on high throughput assays in the referral population. We also see that the concordance of high-risk HPV detection between first void urine and cervical samples ranged from good to very good. We see that there's a non-inferiority of both sensitivity and specificity for SIN2+ detection. And very interestingly, the highest sample acceptance was observed for urine with a preference over swabs. And these are data coming out of a large number of studies we have conducted so far. One last example of the first void urine use, where we typically would look at the follow-up of HPV vaccination. These are studies that were conducted in collaboration with WHO. And here Colibri was collected from 1,885 girls in Rwanda and Bhutan. And we see that the prevalence of HPV 6, 11, 16, and 18 is lower in the vaccinated compared to the unvaccinated cohort. The study also showed that the feasibility of urine surveys, that there is a good feasibility of urine surveys to monitor HPV vaccination. And a very nice quote from Franceschi et al. In Vaccine. Self-collection of urine proved to be highly acceptable in vaccine impact studies conducted by the WHO and IARC and allow a high throughput of sample collection with a minimal requirement for trained staff. And thereby, I thank you for your attention and being present for this presentation.